Hi, everyone. So my name is Jerry Hildebrand, and I am from Circle Sanctuary. I'm an ordained priestess from the Circle, and I'm also an ambassador to this year's Parliament of World Religions. I'm also the vice president of the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. So I say that, and I always get a giggle, because as a pagan, we love storytelling. And so it's an honor that Audrey asked me to support her with this workshop. So I want to ask you all to just close your eyes and just find that center in your solar plexus and in your belly. And we're just going to take a moment and think about the stories of your own life. The stories you tell, what you say to other people. Do they disempower you? Do they empower you? And are you willing to look and see that you can reinvent every story you have to be something that pushes you forward into the future in a way you never knew possible? And also to look, what story do you have that moved you into your path that you are on at this place, in this moment, and in this time? Listen, you're welcome to open your eyes now.
Thank you. I don't believe this is working. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be extremely interactive. When 4 minutes is up, you will hold your hand up.
Yes.
I was born in 1953, the middle of 11 children, 5 older, 5 younger. Both of my parents were Pentecostal ministers. My father was an archbishop who had churches in New York and New Jersey and throughout the South. If it looked good, smelled good, and made you laugh, it was a sin. Now, out of their 11 children, there were really only 2 of us, myself and my brother next to me, who were sinful, who somehow could not figure out how to follow the rules. For me, the rules didn't make any sense. And so my claim to fame, my badge of honor, and also that which has caused me the greatest amount of trouble is my questioning why. How come? It doesn't make any sense. And in the world that I grew up in, no one else was questioning. My father was a self-educated man who had the respect of lawyers on Wall Street. He told people what to do and how to do it. And he was a Republican. And we moved from dirt poor to middle class when I was 6 years old because he traveled and spoke to Republican groups. He was adamantly opposed to the civil rights movement and forced integration. In the 1960s, he was preaching and prophesying the exact condition we now have in urban areas. He said that some of us were going to make it out and would manage to assimilate into mainstream culture, but many of us would not, and that children would be killing each other, and there would be guns and violence in school. And we all thought that he was crazy. And he said, instead of boycotting the bus, we should have bought the bus. And so I grew up in an environment where there was an encouragement to think critically. There was this religious fundamentalist. There was activism and politics sitting around our dinner table, and we all had to dress and come to the dinner table. My mother was insisting that we were going to be middle class no matter what. Piano lessons, violin lessons, everything that middle class meant. And around the dinner table, there was always a conversation about politics, about religion, about something going on in the world. And my father would say, you are not here to take up space. You were not born to take up space. You will not live your life taking up space. When you die, there's a dash. Dash born and dash dead. I want to know what you're going to do in that dash. And so my mother gave me The Magic of Thinking Big when I was 8 years old. She told me to read it. I read it from cover to cover. And one of the most amazing things to me about being an American is the free enterprise system and the belief that we can do anything. One of the things that I realized when I was first in Uganda, energetically, I could not figure out what was different. And after several months, I realized that no matter what, I see a problem and I go, great, wonderful opportunity, let's solve it. And there, every time I would mention a potential solution to a problem, they would immediately tell me, you can't do it. The government's not going to let you do it. And in my mind, I never think about what someone's going to let me do. And so this workshop, Retrieving the Heart of Religion, through the art of storytelling, is about my passage our passage, your passage. And the moment in our lives, that moment that led to the path that brought us here. And for me, that was February of '86. I, at that point, was extremely successful. I had become the first woman of a large financial institution, the first woman manager, not the first black, the first woman manager of beneficial finance in the entire state of New Jersey, August of '77. I was ruthless, I was arrogant, I was going to be a millionaire by age of 30, and I didn't need any man. That was my claim to fame. And I had a spiritual awakening. I was in the hospital, facing major surgery, did not know whether I had cancer. I've never been afraid to die. And that's a gift that my father gave me. I've never been afraid to die. Living has been difficult. And I prayed a simple prayer. I didn't pray to even live. I prayed to learn how to love my children. That was my only desire, but it was a very sincere desire. I had 2 children, aged 4 and 8, and I could not connect to them emotionally. I did not know how to love them. And I prayed a simple prayer. Jesus, if you will teach me how to love my children, I will go wherever you want me to go, and I will do whatever you want me to do. And that's been 30 years. And to the best of my ability, I have kept that promise. How close am I to 4 minutes?
You're very close.
Okay. And so this has been about the journey from a God up in the sky with a big book, with a penis, and I hope I can say that, who has total control of everything, and women are subservient to men. My father preached that God would not hear a woman pray. A man had to intercede. From the age of 8 years old, I have had direct communication with Jesus, and for years I would not say this. The age of 8, Jesus said to me, Christianity is not me. That is not why I came to earth. That is not the message. Now imagine an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old in a patriarchal household with 2 Pentecostal ministers, and Jesus is saying, that's not me. It has taken me many, many years to get to the place where I am willing to declare that the only hell is the one we create with our own minds. That Jesus coming had nothing to do with whether we go to heaven or hell. Salvation is universal. Jesus understood himself to be spirit. We're all spirit. He came to tell us that we are divine, connected to source, universal intelligence, and as such, there's no lack and no limitation. The only rules that govern us are love. Unconditional love, forgiveness and compassion. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're here.
Okay, so now we're going to have a little interactive conversation. So you can see by Audrey's story that she could have taken that side of her life and used it as a tool to disempower herself, to just do as she was told to do, to be who she was told to be, and she chose to shift that story into a tool that now jettisons her like into everything that she does every day. So I asked some questions during the meditation, and I'll share with you a little bit about my story, and then I'll let you move into your stories because I want to hear them. So my story is that I found my defining moment that shaped my path. I grew up as a girl along the Susquehanna River in upstate New York, the land of Hiawatha, across from my family's home overlooked Squaws Island. And I knew there was Native blood in my heritage, but I'm also European, and what did that all mean? Because the river meant more to me than the Presbyterian church that I attended every Sunday. And later on in life, I didn't know what that meant as a girl, but then later on in life, I had some defining moments coming out of a domestically violent marriage. 9 years in that marriage. And I moved to a city along the ocean, and I thought, wow, this is very interesting. I live on water all the time. And then I learned from the beautiful feminine theologians that are out there, from Carol Christ, from Rianne Eisler, and started reading their stuff. And I realized that there was divinity in my heart and soul too, as a woman. And so I looked at that story from my past that I could have used also to define me, to stay in that place, in that marriage, and to never crawl out of it, and may have died. But instead, what I did was I moved forward, and I invented new stories, and I took that story and wove it into a story of empowerment, and a story of love, and a story of the goddess. And if I look at the religions around the world, we all have parables, we all have stories, we all have mythologies, and inside each of those is a piece of us. And what the story is that I love is the one of Amaterasu, and going into the cave, and she was the sun goddess. And when she went into that cave, the light of the world shut down. And all of the creatures were hungry. They wanted warmth back again. They wanted the sun's light. They took a mirror to that mountain in front of that cave and begged her to open the cave up again. And when she did, she had to look at herself in that mirror and see her own beauty, and see that she wasn't who she thought she was. She was who the people thought she was. So I asked the question earlier, what story in your life do you have that you have chosen to flip? It was a story of disempowerment, but now it's the story that empowers you. It was a defining moment for you that had you choose the path that you've chosen for your life. So who would like to share? I'm going to invite you all to come up and use the mic.
My name's Christina Seaborn, and I grew up in an atheistic family. My mom is Catholic, but she doesn't believe in God or prayer or angels. She was raised Catholic, but not practicing Catholic. She had 5 children. I'm the oldest of 5. And I have also an agnostic mother, brother and sister who are scientists who are atheists, another brother who's an atheist, and one sister who possibly could believe in some way because her husband does, but it was basically an atheistic upbringing. My mother was very loving and fair to all 5 children. My father was busy and didn't really have time to be a father, but he was supporting us. So I have always church hopped, and I was free to do that, and I still do that. I still think it's fun to, and so I'm an interfaith chair, and I've searched and searched, and what happened to me was when I was about 23, I found the Urantia book, and all of a sudden, all these things like philosophy, science, religion were integrated, and it felt to me like a college education. Instead of each topic being, well, my class is the only one that matters to that professor, it was integrated and made sense to me. So I'm a violinist, and I married the musician who told me about the Urantia book, and I thought, well, we both play music, we both have the same belief, we should have a fine marriage, but I found out there are other things to make a good marriage. And so at the age of 25, I had 3rd stage ovarian cancer, and I believe it was based on negative. I was being criticized by my husband for not thinking correctly, for not being logical, and so I was taking logic classes and history classes and trying to think, and I got this knot in my stomach, and it eventually became a tumor. And with ovarian cancer, 3rd stage you can live, 4th stage you don't. So I was 3rd stage, and I was young, 25, and I had a complete full hysterectomy and never been sick since. I'm super healthy, but I had this moment where I prayed to God and I said, you know, I have a lot of music left in me to play, and I will live every day for you. And I do remember that they had religious on my chart. That was kind of cool at the hospital. And I think that is important.
Wrap it up.
Well, anyway, so I've lived every day for God since.
Give her a hand. Wow.
We also have to share.
Just 1 second. Tell me your name again.
Christina.
Christine, what you have really done, you didn't know about our meeting yesterday, you've really created the space for the conversation that we wanted to happen. And just thank you so much for the courage to stand up here to share and the courage to be alive today, because you could have easily chose to leave.
Who else? What was a defining moment? Come on up.
And if we could keep it to maybe a minute and a half, only because we have to strictly stay at 45 minutes to allow for Stephanie.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Maria, and I grew up in Europe, but originally we're from Syria. So I lived in France, and then when we moved back to Syria, I went to Catholic school to continue my education in French. So that story was when I was probably preschool or kindergarten or first grade, I can't remember. But I learned about the love of God, that God loves you, God loves you. But I think at that age, it was really hard for me to understand God and how God is going to love me. And I tried to do an experiment on myself. At that age, I was probably 8 or 9. So I had a teddy bear who's still with me because it was the first gift that I received when I was born. So I put my teddy bear on my tricycle, and it was a raining day. And I wanted to imitate the story of Moses and his mother, and how much she loved him, because I grew up in that story, and how she suffered, you know, and I didn't know anything about the suffering or whatever. All I remember is that she put him in a basket and threw him in the Nile. So on the balcony of our home, it was a very raining, heavy day, I decided to go through that experience to feel how the mother of Moses felt when she put her baby in the basket. So I put him in my tricycle in the back, and I covered him with a newspaper, and I let the tricycle go all the way under the rain. And I was, from a distance, crying over my baby, who I left him to be saved by God. I don't remember exactly what happened, except I remember that it was so long for me. I spent hours, probably a few minutes, crying over my baby, but I wanted to see how much she loved him. And I came to the conclusion, if I don't know how God loves me, I think I'm going to find how much I love God. And since then, I grew up with the faith that I love God. I'm going to do whatever it takes to serve Him the right way and keep Him in my mind and my heart and my soul. I don't know how I was able to connect the story, but that was the beginning of my journey. Thank you.
Good morning once again. Now, Pauline is my name. My journey from back home in Kenya. We all grew up, Kenya is a very Christian-oriented country. I grew up in a staunch Christian home. I went to Catholic schools because those are the best schools back home, where parents believe your kids are disciplined and they become good people. Well, I went to those schools, but it was really hard because the Catholic schools back home, the nuns were pretty tough on us. So it was really hard growing out of that. And I went to boarding school from class 8 all the way to high school. That's until I was from 8 to 18. And it was pretty hard. So I really worked hard to be a good girl. For me, I grew up knowing God was this man somewhere. We needed to work so hard to be good for Him to love us. So it was always trying to be good. We almost tried to persuade God. We went on our knees and we did everything to plead with Him so that He could come through for us. So it was a manipulative kind of love with God. And for a long time, that didn't feel right for me, but I didn't know any better. So I continued in the Catholic life until a point when my husband and I felt so disconnected. I was this girl who had a good job, who had a family, And I had the money, I had everything, but I was lost because I had lived this life based on what society had told me. I had ticked all the boxes, gotten married, gotten a degree, gotten a good job, and had kids. But it just didn't feel right with me because I felt there was an emptiness. And I felt God was so detached from me. And I needed to find a God who I could relate to. So I left Catholic Church, which was unheard of. Many people went on their knees to pray for me because I was lost. And I said, for me, there was this superiority in the Catholic, that these are the best. I mean, they are the sign of God, and God is nowhere else but in the Catholic Church. But for me, it wasn't right because I had to go through somebody to get to God. And I felt that's not the way God wants us to live. We all need a personal relationship with God. So I said I needed to find God for me. And in 2009, I quit my job because I felt lost. And I decided to embark on a journey to find me because I wanted to find my truth, not based on what people had told me, but based on what Pauline is. Because I didn't even know who I was, because I was this Pauline who had been created by society, but that wasn't right for me. So I decided to embark on this journey, and that's my spiritual awakening. Finding God as this person in me, because God, I realized, was not out there, and relating with Him and helping people get out of it, finding themselves, finding their truth, so that we can awaken the world, because people are suffering. But I believe all the situations that I've gone through that were struggles was actually a connection with God, because they allowed me to go deep inside and go back to the place when I remember all of us in 9 months in our mother's womb. We are all beautiful, we're whole, we're complete. But yet we come out and the ego of our parents begin to define us and give us titles. And I want people to all go back to the 9 month, to the baby in the womb. We all came with nothing but to find that person back, who's not defined according to sex, according to religion, according to color, according to status, because we are all one. We're connected in the soul. And that's been my journey, to help people find their place back to the baby who we are all born, who's pure and holy.
Both of you may come, just come and form a line. Just come up front.
To ditto her story.
Oh,
That's
ditto.
my story.
Yeah.
13 years here in Salt Lake, being raised Catholic. Exactly my story also.
What is your name? Tell us your name.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, okay.
So, yes,
Cynthia, that's wonderful, because all of our stories are each other's stories.
exactly. So thank you for sharing my
She's here
story.
with me.
You're here first, okay. Samantha, you can get in line.
Ladies first.
Good morning. My name is Taya, and I was born in a Muslim household in Pakistan at the same time, Audrey, that you were born. And I just wanted to share two defining moments that are really linked to what this topic is today. First of all is the role of parents, because we grew up in a very strict cultural norm-driven environment, but our parents, we were 5 kids. I'm the second of 5 children, 3 girls, 2 boys. They educated all their children. They put all their children in co-education schools in Pakistan, where boys and girls, right from day one, were studying together. And they taught us by saying that knowledge and education is your jewelry, not the material things that we use as jewelry. And that was really something that has driven all of us to get the careers, be successful, bring up the families, and be very close together as siblings and children. And then the second sort of defining point from that is that we grew up in a Muslim household. We chose to be Muslims because from very early age, we were given interfaith education. Our father was a very good Muslim scholar, but right from day one, he used to tell us about all the religions, the commonalities, the goodness, and how to be tolerant. And then that helped us still have our connection with God right from day one and use that as a guiding light. And I wanted to share that, the importance of parents and how they bring up their children.
Thank you so much.